Hello, welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery. Tonight we're speaking with Barbara Martin in conjunction with her Cerulean Arts Collective Exhibition, which is on view now through July 27th. Hello, Barbara.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
So this is your first Cerulean exhibition.
Yes, although I have been in your national juried shows before.
That's right. That's right. So tell us a bit about yourself and your new show.
Well, this show is made entirely of pieces from my ongoing Superply series. They're all in black and white, they're painted on plywood, they are completely intuitive. Um, they're not planned, they start from basically an ink plot and grow from there. I started out not being an artist. I actually have an MBA from many years ago. Um, I've traveled a lot. My husband and I have moved probably 27 times. I grew up, we lived in Africa and Europe and the Caribbean. So I never really felt like I fit in anywhere completely. I don't really have that home base of sort of solid belonging. And I think that these paintings show a little bit of that kind of befuddlement where I get to a new place and I'm not quite sure what's going on. And if you look at them, um, they're mostly, as I work through a piece, I begin with that ink blot and I'll look for eyeballs. Once I find eyeballs, I can start to begin to find creatures who sort of inhabit the little world that's on that board. And as they go along, there might be more than one, there might be only one, but they start to tell a little story between themselves and me. And I just let them grow. You look a little mystified.
No, I'm just enjoying looking at, the more I look at them, the more I see. So you start them like just with an ink blot.
Yeah, literally. I'm right-handed like most people, but I will put black paint on my left hand and just kind of rub it in my fingers and feel the paint. And I will smear that, make little dibby dab marks on a piece of black paper. Then I'll turn the paper flat onto the board and rub it so that I can leave a print on the board. And I'll make a couple prints till the paint is used up. And then I'm looking at random black marks on a piece of plywood, thinking, okay, there's no way you can do this wrong because look how it started, which is kind of important because I am terrified of the blank page, just like a writer or, a lot of artists like get a little panicky. But there's something right there that I can respond to. And I have a conversation in a way with the marks on the board.
So a couple of these they're in color.
Yes, those are very special. I have not done very many in color. That one I think is called Blue in the Face. And there are original black marks on the plywood in that painting somewhere. There are multiple layers built up trying to find color contrast. I love to play with color. I also paint in color. So, um, yeah. Blue in the face, it's kind of like you tell yourself the same reminders over and over until you're blue in the face. Or maybe having
Mhm.
and you feel like you're going blue in the face.
Hmm.
The one next to it is kind of a cute one, a sweet one. Um, I did that in California. I was awarded a wonderful residency at Gerasi. And while we were there were 6 or 7 or 8 of us. They cooked meals for us every day. So the cook brought in a huge box of donuts one day and left them on a counter. And by the next day, they were gone. No one saw anybody else take any.
Hmm.
But we were like little kids with donuts. So hands up if you like donuts. Of course you do.
Of
Or whatever your
course, right.
bird is. Hands up.
So when you work on these, do you stay on one till it's done, or do you work on more than one at the same time?
Generally, I work in batches, maybe 5 or 6, maybe 8. Partly because my tendency is to overwork things, or I'll get frustrated and start to just scribble and cover everything up. So I'll do ink blots on all the boards in the batch at one time. And I'll go away and get a cup of coffee, and I'll come back and I'll start holding the boards in my lap and turning them all around so that I'm looking for the eyeballs, I'm looking for faces, I'm looking for suggestions or hints of sort of anything. Um, if I mark some eyeballs, then I'll move on to the next one, look for some eyeballs, move to the next one. I'll do all that. Then I'll start looking for, well, is there any type of structural connection between where I've marked the eyeballs? Is there any type of a shape to the inky blot things that suggests a body or some other aspect of the image? This one actually is an interesting one. I made a mistake. I tend to write words on them at the very end. And that one says true something ORTH. And when I first did it, I thought it said north, but the N was a little bit squiggly. So I tried to correct it and firm it up. And it came out crooked again, only worse. And it says worth. And I thought, is that a slip of the hand or is that some, other message? I think it's a very powerful, almost feminine figure. I thought, is that some sort of a wisdom statement? There's also a bird in it. A lot of my paintings have these birds, or they might have fish. And I kind of, in retrospect, I kind of think birds and fish, they're both very free in very wide open places. Like the ocean is huge and vast and limitless, and the sky is limitless. And they're out there free unless you cage them and put them in a goldfish bowl or in a bird cage. I thought, wow, that kind of comes up and over. And this one is also about space. It's not a lot, sort of at ground level, but if you go upward towards the top of the painting, you'll see there's sort of a hot air balloon or a space capsule or I don't know what with a little guy in it, and it says portal right in there on the door-ish. You see it. And then at the very top right, I think it says space. Is that outer space or just mental space or physical space? I did that on a residency in Wyoming, which for me is like the epitome of big sky country. And I had driven there in Portland, Oregon. So I drove east to Wyoming. And I always consider the drive to a residency as kind of a portal experience where you leave everything behind you and you're open to whatever's going to happen next. I did this one on my latest residency at the with the 547 Art Center and MT Liggett Art Environment in Kansas. It's another big sky area. And MT Liggett was sort of a folk artist who did a lot of metal sculptures using scrap metal. He actually had some work shipped to show at the Outsider Art Museum in Baltimore. A lot of his pieces were very totemic. And I think that's maybe how this one came to be structured the way it is. I spent a lot of time walking the fields. They're out in wide open pasture fields looking at his sculptures. Oh,
So
yeah.
you've traveled around a lot. So how do you like Philadelphia, and is Philadelphia infusing your art?
It's really interesting. I lived in Malvern when I was a kid for a little while. And my sister was actually born in Bryn Mawr. So then later, as an adult, I lived in Gettysburg for about 8 years, maybe. So this is the third time I've lived in Pennsylvania. And what I am really, it's fascinating. When I drive around the countryside, I feel like this is my native landscape. And it seems a little bit enclosed. I think partly the hills, and it's much more populated, and sort of signs of people everywhere. Whereas out in the West, you can go sometimes for 100 miles and there's not even a freeway exit. So I think it does influence it in that it's feeling a little bit condensed. And I tried to do some of this series here. We moved here during the pandemic and we have one. I think it's called, it's the Audubon, Carnage for Audubon. It has a lot of birds kind of piled up in a heap. When I was a kid, my mother's family had some Audubon prints, and I don't know if they were book pages or what, but they were very carefully kept in tissue paper in a box. And I remember seeing these. I must have been 7, 8. And I never thought about it really again until we moved here in pandemic and I was driving along and we went through Audubon.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, here we are. And at the time,
Mhm.
I kind of felt like my whole life had crashed and burned because I felt very uprooted to come from the West Coast to come back east.
Mm.
Although the good part of being here is we have a definite 4 season climate, and a lot of rain compared to even in Portland, Oregon, where we were before. You think it's rainy, but it's not.
Mm.
It's dry all summer, so you have to irrigate.
Huh.
Yeah. So here I'm loving, like, especially this year, I'm an avid gardener. I actually studied horticulture for a while and I used to do garden design and I was a
Mm.
columnist. And that was probably my first art form was garden design. And I took a lot of photos of gardens and I would do slide talks. And I had like a laundry basket full of bad slides and about 100 I would use. So if you
Wow.
think composition and color and how to frame things and see things, I think that was a lot of good training.
Hmm.
I did take some college art courses too along the way. I think 4, but I didn't major in art.
Mm.
No. But yeah, so right now I'm really playing with a lot. I have about 100 different daylilies and I'm matching colors. So when I say I enjoy painting with color, I'm really working to train my eye. I'm always studying. I'm always trying to paint better, improve my skills. So this one is just raw energy.
Yeah, this is a real fun one.
Love little guy. And if you look
Mhm.
sort of down the body, there's almost like hieroglyphic marks. I've always been fascinated with symbology and hieroglyphics, and quite a few of my paintings will have some type of little marks. They're often hash marks like you would use for counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a side swipe for 5. There's some like that, but they're usually not in fives. And you'll find little triangles for delta. It's where I must have felt like something needs to change. But those hieroglyphics, they don't have a specific meaning. They're just like, they're all Greek to me. Oh, yeah. Have a nice day. You know, when the store clerk is forced to tell you, oh, yes, thank you, have a nice day.
Right. Like it
Figure
or not.
great a day as they are.
Mhm.
When we lived in Africa, we saw masks a lot of actually animals with interesting horns and shapes that we don't normally see. And that one to me is a little bit like a cross between a cat of some kind and I don't know what. The one at the bottom is probably a cat. How many does it have? 4 legs or 5? 4. Many of my animals have the wrong number of legs, and many of my hands have the wrong number of fingers. And I'm not sure why. That's just how they come out. Oh, Spike. I think of this one as Spike. Do you remember when this is actually a Pennsylvania era one? When I was a kid, I loved going to the caverns, like the caves that you could go in and visit, and
Uh-huh.
colored light shows, and you could walk through. Or now I think they make you ride in a
Mm.
little art thing, but the
Hmm.
slag go up like mountains, and the stalactites come down from the top. So you see
Right.
lights written on it. And I kept thinking, where is this crazy outfit coming from? I couldn't. It finally dawned on me about 2 weeks ago. My phone showed me some old photos, and my granddaughter had a Halloween costume dressed up like a bee. And her dad had given her, instead of antennas, he had pulled her little hair way up into, I don't know what product he used to do it, but she had 2 little spikes of hair and it had horizontal stripes just like that. And I thought, yeah, I think that's where it came from. And mittens, you have to have mittens for protection if you're caving. The spelunking, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But then coming out of his head, I don't know, got a light bulb and then some hypersensory hearing on the right.
Hmm.
This, like I said, I never really know. I kind of look at it later. and I think, oh, that's where that came from. Or I'm still mystified. And as I do them, I have started to try to remember to write little notes on the back of the board of what was going through my mind at the time, because often it changes pretty substantially between the beginning and the end. And the
Hmm.
end, when a title seems correct, and then I know the painting is actually finished. It's like a eureka moment. It's like, oh, that's it. It's good. Yeah. Chicken or egg? Egg or chicken?
Right. It's a conundrum.
Yes. Oh, I think so much of life is kind of a conundrum like that. There's little hatch marks on the bottom.
So the white is oil pastel. Is that
Yeah. Looks like it's actually an oil pastel. It's like a crayon piece of chalk, but it's got a little bit of oil paint in it. And there are a few have black oil pastel, and
Mhm.
pretty often the eyes, because I will have pencil. Because I do look for the eyeballs, I'll use a pencil, just an ordinary. I have a Hello Kitty pencil that I love to use, but it's down to little tiny stubs. I'm going to have to find another one. It's kind of everything is such a ritual with these paintings. It's hard to
Mhm.
kind of not having my Hello Kitty pencil.
Right. It's necessity.
Yes, this one was fascinating because it went through many iterations in my mind, and I ended up painting more and more black to kind of reduce and simplify. And that little thing with the antenna and the legs, the little jellyfish thing, that brown in the face is the original board without any paint on it. And that
Oh,
circle was left empty and painted around for over a week. And I come back and say, what is that? That's apparently I have left that in plain wood for a reason, but what what does it have to do with the rest of the painting? And the poor creature at the bottom, they were kind of, it looked to me like it sort of expired and getting mouth to mouth from some other creature, but on the back, the word belly is pretty prominent. So I don't know. But in the end, it seemed like that little thing was drifting down, and they're going to say just a little pinch. So I think he's being taken away by the aliens to the UFO, but I don't know. I have days where I kind of feel like I do not know what's going on in general.
right.
And that's kind of, yeah, a lot of these shows sort of my befuddlement, really, with day to day life. Did you have, I think you have this is a good one. This one's kind of like the eye test. I started this at a live paint in a gallery, and the audience was so excited about these paintings and so enthusiastic. And they started to tell me all the different creatures they could see when I made the eyeballs. And they were calling out Einstein and the golden retriever and this and that and the other thing. And it just kind of overflowed my own inclination of what I might find in there. And I couldn't work on that board. I get it out and I look and say, no, all I see is Einstein and that doggone dog. So I was at a point where I needed a lot of paintings for a big show, a solo show, actually two-person show, with an abstract art, assemblage artist whose work really complements these. And I needed more paintings, and I have to use the board. And so, well, they're eyeballs. Clearly, let's just make them eyeballs. And I didn't know what to do, so I started painting in between them, going vertical stroke and sideways stroke, and vertical stroke and sideways stroke, and it made kind of a checkerboard pattern. I said, wait, that's kind of like the eye test that you do when you are like in kindergarten and can't read yet, where you point the direction of I think they're M's and E's or something. So it really is just like an eye test. And then it's a vision test. And is it a visionary test? Because I had completely lost my test. I had failed moment. I thought that just worked out just right. So I kind of love that painting. It was very much a group effort. Yeah, because a lot of times I am influenced by what's around me, the kind of the vibe in the room, if I can say that. Um, I think from a lot of times not knowing the language where I was, having to pick up on sort of read the crowd in so many instances, that I think it kind of made me a little bit hypersensitive to other people's what they're projecting for their feelings. Although it can also be really clueless. So yeah, that poor little face. I could have been a mermaid. When my daughter was younger, she was taking singing lessons and she had to sing that mermaid song from the Disney movie. And then she would cry every time she sang it. She said it was because the poor girl had to comb her hair with a fork. So when I saw that mermaid, she had to have a fork and a spoon. And there's so many faces in there, and I couldn't pick a favorite. They just seem to talk to each other. And then there are little fish scales on it. So there's fish again. There's so many possibilities. I think any person could really be a multitude of different people depending on their situation. Grace. If you look up at the top, up above the head on the left, it says pressure, and that's grace under pressure. And this figure had that kind of horrifying weight on her head, and then the face, and then the clean neck and shoulders. And I put pearls on that neck and took it off probably 5 times. And I finally said, no, you don't need that sort of traditional seal of approval of pearls. Grace is something you just give yourself. So I took them off. It's always funny. The last few choices are probably the most important. That's where the real sort of discretion comes into it. Is it going to serve the painting from a artistic standpoint? Does it help the composition? Does it help with the contrast? Does it help pull your eye through?
Yeah, I mean, those decisions are cooler. They're more objective, I think, after the frenzy of getting everything on there. Then you sort of look at it
Yeah,
and
like that
suss it out.
one took me a week to decide. I had another one like that. It ended up to be a coffee cup. I mean, it was like, what? What is the point of? Obviously, I've left it for some unknown, unconscious, subconscious reason. But what could it possibly be? And that's when you know you've really got it. And I think too, lots of people can look at these and find their own stories in them. I can
Definitely.
what I saw, but honestly, I've had people tell me so many wildly varied things about each painting, and I love that because for me, that's as an artist, I've communicated some type of feeling, and then the reception of that feeling is in sort of the eye of the beholder and the heart of the beholder and their own lived experience. Oh, honk if you like pizza. That's a good one. I've been driving down the interstate, a very calm, quiet drive, long drive to Michigan because I had a residency in Michigan and I had to drive through Detroit. And when I got to Detroit, that's Car City, right? And people drove like maniacs and they were weaving at high speed and like. Now, I drove in LA for years, so I'm not bothered by traffic, but they were a little nutty that afternoon. I thought, golly, why don't you just honk like you like pizza? That's where that came from. But I love that painting because it was just such a wild moment. You kind of come out of the serenity of my portal drive and I'm getting close and
Right,
all zipping.
right. It all blows up.
Yeah.
Um, well, it's a fantastic show, Barbara.
Thank you. I you could tell I was very emotional when I brought them in because I had them lined up in my living room and I just kind of look at each one and say, oh, hi, how are you? See you. Otherwise, they have to live in the vault. So I always hope people will enjoy them, come see them, talk to them, have a little chat with them, chat with me if you come to the opening. And, if you feel moved, take one home with you. But
Right. Definitely. The show is up through July 27th. We hope people come down to see it. And everything's also available on our website, ceruleanarts.com. So thanks, Barbara, so much for being here and have a great night.
well, thank you, Mike. And thank you, Tina. Wonderful camera work.